Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. I still have that photograph. The one I couldn't bring myself to delete. A corner is bent. The edges yellowed. In it, I see her, Liz, leaning against my shoulder on some pier in Boston, the water behind us dotted with small white sails. It was a windy afternoon, hair whipping across her face, the corners of her eyes crinkling with genuine laughter. My arm is wrapped around her. We look unbreakable. That's the cruel irony now. We look so damn solid, so perfect, but the moment I lay eyes on that photo, a searing wave of panic hits me. Short bursts, heart pounding, breath cut short. Even so, I keep it. God help me, I keep it. I close my eyes, and the memory collides with a more recent picture. Liz stepping into our house with Trevor trailing behind. The way her eyes flicked to him. The shared grin that twisted something in my gut. The recollection flashes in short, intense bursts, her hair slightly tousled, his shirt half untucked, their hands too close. My heart hammered that night. I remember pressing myself against the hallway wall, trying not to breathe, hearing them laugh softly. The panic now is the same as it was then. Unstoppable, electric, threatening to crumple me to the floor. But I don't fall. Not this time. I grit my teeth against the sudden ache in my shoulder, always the first place I feel pain when I'm under siege. It radiates down my arm, a physical reminder of the tension that has lived in me for weeks. I will it to subside. I have to function. I have to think. Because betrayal doesn't happen in one grand gesture. It's a slow drip, drop after drop, until the flood. And if you're not paying attention, you'll drown before you know you're even wet. You might ask, did I ever suspect? I've been married to Liz for decades. We have shared jokes, bank accounts, burdens, and dreams. You'd think I'd spot the smallest cracks. But the truth is, cracks appear slowly, in the shadows, behind the daily grind. She started working late. She mentioned a new colleague at the tech firm. Funny, charming. Oh, just a bartender she'd met during a corporate event by the sea. I didn't get suspicious at first. Why should I? I trusted her. Still, small things. The smell of cologne that wasn't mine lingering on her scarf. A text message I glimpsed when her phone screen lit up unexpectedly. Just an emoji, a single wave symbol. She brushed it off. Trevor likes to play around with silly icons, she said. He's the hotel's event coordinator. We're hosting a big off-site meeting soon. It's harmless. Sure, harmless. I nodded, smiled, swallowed. But the panic grew, thrashing under my rib cage. Something was off, and I felt it in the pit of my stomach. Then came the final straw. The night I followed her. That's not something I'm proud of. By the way, sneaking around in the gloom, practically hugging the side of a building. But desperation has a way of turning a man into a stranger. I saw them together near the service entrance of that seaside hotel. Trevor had a hand on her waist, pulling her closer under the fluorescent light. She pressed her lips to his, and he slid his fingers into her hair with an ease that told me this wasn't the first time. Everything in me roared. My chest hammered so fiercely, I thought I'd explode. But I didn't charge in. I just watched like some powerless voyeur, rage trembling in my fingertips. The memory still stabs me. Standing there, I felt the first real flash of physical agony. My back seized, my shoulder burned, and my breath hissed between my teeth. I had to steady myself on a railing, the metal cold against my palm, to keep from toppling over. My voice died in my throat. I said nothing. I let them do whatever they were doing, right out in the open. Minutes that felt like hours. Only once they slipped back inside did I stagger away, knuckles white from gripping the rail. Back home, I paced the living room. The house felt different, emptier. Even the familiar hum of the refrigerator sounded hostile. I wanted to smash everything in sight. Instead, I kicked my old armchair so hard I bruised 2 toes. Pointless. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked, and only half-formed curses spat out. Liz wasn't home yet. I had hours to figure out a plan. Instead, I told myself, kill trust in 3 steps. That's what betrayal does, right? 1. Realize everything you believed is a lie. 2. Confront it. 3. Watch the last threads unravel. Because once trust is dead, you have to decide what comes next: forgiveness, vengeance, or disappearance. Over the following days, I felt my body physically responding to the stress. My left shoulder in particular became a hotspot of pain. Even when I tried to relax, a dull throbbing forced me to stay alert. I found myself unable to sleep. I took a DNA test for reasons that felt muddled in the moment. Some paranoid thought that if everything else was a lie, maybe my entire identity or lineage was too. Maybe I wanted proof that something, anything, in my life was still real. It arrived in the mail. I stared at it, trembling. The results themselves had no direct bearing on Liz's affair, but the final blow came anyway. I found something was different, something about my paternal ancestry, a private slap in the face. It symbolized that nothing in my life was stable. My shoulders seized again, like barbed wire tightening. But ironically, the real bomb dropped when I discovered her voice on a small recorder I'd used for my investigations at work. I had left it running out of habit, or maybe out of some twisted curiosity. And there she was, speaking in hushed tones. Not to me. Her words poured out in heated murmurs. I can't stop thinking about you. I wish I could stay longer. The way you touch me. My entire chest felt like it was splitting open. I dropped the recorder, mind reeling. Physical agony blended with emotional anguish until I couldn't separate the two. My phone slipped from my hand. My voice broke into a guttural noise I barely recognized. When Liz came home that evening, I tried to confront her. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed tightly across my chest. I forced the words out, even though my throat felt tight. Where were you? My voice wavered. She paused, giving me that calm, almost indifferent look that made me want to scream. At the office, she replied quietly. I took a breath. Don't lie. My voice cracked, but I pushed on. I know about Trevor. Silence. Her expression didn't crumble the way I expected. She didn't burst into tears or scramble to deny it. Her eyes flicked away for a moment, and when she looked back at me, it was like she had rehearsed a script. I'm sorry, Mike, was all she said, in a tone so devoid of true remorse it made my skin prickle. I stared, my thoughts tumbling. She wasn't even fighting for us. Why? I demanded. Why the hell? I stopped because my voice threatened to shatter again. My shoulder flared, a painful jolt that made me grit my teeth. She shrugged, the barest lift of her shoulders. I don't know what to say. Try the truth, I hissed. Tell me this is just some drunken mistake, or a one-time thing. Tell me something I can cling to. Her eyes slid away again. It's not a single mistake, she said, so quietly I almost missed it. I'm sorry, Mike. Then she stepped around me, like I was an obstacle in the hallway. She disappeared into our bedroom. And that was it. A half apology, no real explanation. Indifference. That nonchalance cut deeper than any wild outburst could have. I sank onto the couch. My head pounded. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I dozed in and out of nightmares on the couch, jacket still on, feeling the knot in my shoulder tighten every time I breathed. Morning came, watery light streaming through the windows. The house was quiet. Liz left early, or maybe she never slept. I found myself staring into the bathroom mirror, noticing every line in my face, every sign of age. My reflection frightened me. In that moment, I realized the second step had come to pass. Confrontation. The trust was shattered. Now what? I had another flash. The memory of them kissing by the service door. The heavy sensation of betrayal doubled me over, and I clutched the sink, gagging. I needed a plan. That's when I remembered. Return. A single word I'd once scrawled on the foggy window, hoping she'd notice, that she'd care. She never asked me about it. That should have been the sign. She wasn't coming back to me emotionally. I spent the next few weeks moving quietly, gathering evidence, not sure yet if I intended to blow up our marriage publicly or try to salvage some shred of dignity. I found text messages, cryptic notes in her planner, like Trevor, 8 p.m., Redwood Suite. Redwood Suite was the corner suite in that fancy seaside hotel, the one with the romantic view. My stomach lurched just thinking about it. Yet still, I wasn't sure if I'd walk out or lash out. During that time, I'd see her in the house, cooking or scrolling on her phone, and I'd feel a surge of bile. It was my turn to become distant. She'd say, "Need anything from the store?" And I'd just grunt, refusing eye contact. Anger hammered at my chest, but so did an odd sense of heartbreak. I was at war with myself. I remember one raw night, I confronted her with the text messages. She was at the dining table, flipping through some work papers. I slapped down a printout, times, dates, even the wave emoji that Trevor so often sent. "This is you," I said, words clipped. "Admit it." She looked at the paper. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to the messages. "We're adults," she said, voice eerily calm. "There's nothing to explain. It just happened." I clenched my fists so hard I thought I'd crack the bones. My voice erupted. "That's the only explanation you can give me. It just happened." I kicked the table leg, and the whole thing rattled, sending her glass of water sloshing. She didn't flinch. She just watched me, like I was a storm she had expected. "Are you done?" she asked softly, after my breathing turned ragged. Something in me snapped, and I stormed out. That was the last real conversation we had. We inhabited the same house but rarely spoke. I began sleeping in a cheap motel 2 nights a week, telling her I had intense deadlines or out-of-town interviews. She didn't ask questions. The rest of the time, I scored for some reason not to let everything burn. Each time I tried to voice it, my throat seized up. One evening, my mother called from her assisted living home. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it broke anyway. She sensed something was wrong. "Are you okay, Michael?" she asked. I lied. I told her I was tired, busy with work. The pain in my shoulder flared so intensely I had to wrap my free hand around it. That physical pain was an echo of the emotional torment I felt. She said, "You need rest, son," with a worried tone, and I promised I'd visit soon. Lying to my mother, it's incredible how betrayal seeps into every corner of your life, turning you into a stranger even to yourself. Meanwhile, Trevor existed like a phantom in the background. I never confronted him face to face. Part of me wanted to track him down at that bar, smash a bottle over his head, and roar in his face about what he'd stolen from me. But I always held back. I didn't want to land in jail, especially not for some guy who might not even be around in a few months. Another part of me wondered if Liz had fallen in love with him. The uncertainty gnawed at me, feeding my resentment. When the final confrontation came, it wasn't a single explosion of violence or tears. It was a quiet departure. One day, she packed a small bag. I heard the rattle of a zipper from our bedroom. She stepped out, looked me in the eye, and said, "I'm going away for a few days." No explanation. I didn't need one. We both knew she was going to see him. She didn't even bother lying. That's what trust looks like when it's dead on the floor. The next day, I found a worn duffel bag in the attic. I stuffed in some clothes, my laptop, that old watch from my father, plus the photograph. Always the photograph. Then I wrote "return" on the fog-up bathroom mirror, mirroring my earlier attempt. It felt like a final message. She never responded to it. She never even acknowledged it. So I left. I changed states, changed my name, rented a dismal apartment in a rainy corner of Seattle, quit my investigative job, and started freelancing under a new identity. I wanted no trace for her to follow. I expected to feel relieved, but the pain came with me, lodged in my bones. Some nights, I'd jolt awake, my shoulder screaming in agony, the nightmare of her and him tangling in my mind's eye. A month passed. Then 2. I tried to bury myself in freelance work, writing articles on topics I barely cared about. My bank account dwindled. I lived like a ghost, barely speaking to neighbors or friends. The emotional wound festered. I found myself in a dingy bar, ironically not unlike the one where Trevor might work, drinking whiskey alone at a corner table. Each gulp stung my throat, but not as badly as the memory of her lips on his. The bartender gave me a sympathetic nod. He didn't pry. Maybe he saw the raw edges in my face. Then, one rainy afternoon, I reached my threshold. I'd had enough of being a ghost. I realized I had two choices: let the betrayal define me or confront it in a final, definitive way. That's when I started planning how to kill trust once and for all. But not just trust in the relationship, trust in me. I had to burn that bridge in her mind, so there was no going back. Because a part of me sensed that one day she'd come looking, perhaps out of guilt or curiosity, or maybe for closure. I wanted to be prepared. Step 1. Gather everything that made me who I was, everything I used to share with Liz. Photo albums, old letters, memory boxes. I loaded them into my trunk, piece by piece. My shoulder throbbed, but I forced my way through it. Then I drove to a discreet storage unit in an industrial park and stashed it all away. The place was cold and smelled like dust. I took the final photograph of me and Liz in Boston, the one I had kept, and placed it in a small metal box. I locked it. I locked away my entire past. Step 2. Make her see the consequences. I crafted a letter, typed neatly. In it, I told Liz she had destroyed me. But in doing so, she'd also forged something new, a man who owed her nothing. I told her I'd discovered her affair in every humiliating detail: her nights at the Redwood Suite, her phone calls, her purring voice on my recorder. I told her about the pain, physical and emotional, that ravaged me. Then I told her I was done being the victim. I was done believing we shared anything real. I left instructions for where she could find that letter. Part of me wanted her to read it and realize exactly how thoroughly she'd gutted me. But if she chose not to, that was fine, too. Step 3. Show her that the man she knew no longer existed, or that he existed but had become something cold and unrecognizable. I had changed my name legally. I had changed my appearance, cut my salt and pepper hair shorter, grew a mustache. I quietly withdrew money from our joint account over weeks until it was nearly empty. I made no apologies. She'd notice eventually. But ironically, none of it stopped the nightmares. None of it eliminated the ache in my body. Vengeance, I learned, doesn't necessarily heal you. It just gives you a focal point for your rage. I woke up each morning, still feeling empty. This led me to a realization. I needed a final scene, a direct confrontation. She had to see my transformation, to feel my coldness. Then I might find peace, because no matter how many steps I took to kill trust, I'd never be free until I looked her in the eye and told her how her betrayal had turned me into a new creature. So I arranged it. I found out Trevor was bartending at a private anniversary event in a coastal town not far from Seattle. Word travels when you're still half connected to the journalism circuit. Liz was set to attend as a liaison for her company. I forged a press pass, claiming I was covering local business expansions. That gave me an excuse to be there. I arrived early. The location was a renovated waterfront inn with whitewashed walls and big glass windows overlooking the harbor. I wore a simple black suit jacket, pressed slacks, and dress shoes. An old pair I hadn't put on in years. My reflection in the glass doors felt alien. My short hair was meticulously combed, and the mustache gave me a sterner edge. My jaw was set in a grim line. I felt a stabbing in my shoulder, but I forced it to relax. Inside, people mingled, sipping champagne, exchanging small talk. A local string quartet plucked delicate notes in the background. My eyes scanned the crowd. Then I saw them. Liz wore a stylish black dress with minimal gold jewelry, poised as ever. Trevor had on black slacks and a crisp white shirt rolled at the sleeves, standing behind the bar. chatting with a small group of guests. She approached the bar, gave him a polite smile. His hand brushed her wrist lightly, subtle enough, but I could read the intimacy. My lungs constricted. I took a deep breath, walked up, and locked eyes with Liz first. She froze. It took her a moment, maybe two, to register who I was. Her eyebrows knit together. "Mike," she whispered, or half-lipped, as if the word caught in her throat. Then out loud, more uncertain, "Michael." Trevor paused mid-sentence and looked at me. Recognition spread across his face in slow motion. He swallowed. I watched them both like I was behind glass. Everything in the room seemed to slow. The chatter, the music, all faded. I inclined my head. "Elizabeth," I said in a measured tone. My voice sounded hollow in my own ears, but it didn't break. "You look well." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Trevor cleared his throat, obviously uneasy. "Look, man." I cut him off with a dismissive wave. "I'm here on business, Trevor." I turned to Liz. My gaze raked over her. She looked stunned, uncertain, not indifferent like before. "Fancy seeing you both here," I said, the dryness in my voice reminiscent of sarcasm, but I felt no humor. Liz's eyes glistened with some emotion, fear, guilt, maybe regret. "Mike, I didn't know you were. I mean, where have you been?" I gave a tight shrug, ignoring the twinge in my shoulder. "Gone," I said simply, "but I thought I'd stop by for old time's sake. To show you something." Trevor set a glass down on the bar, the tension thick enough to choke on. "We should probably keep it civil," he muttered. I shifted my gaze to him, let him feel the weight of my stare. "Civil," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" He tightened his jaw but said nothing. Liz drew a breath, trying to regain composure. A few curious attendees glanced our way, but the event was large enough that no one came to intervene. "Mike, can we talk somewhere private?" Liz asked, her voice hushed and urgent. I pretended to consider. Then I nodded. "Yes, let's." I walked away from the bar, heading for a side corridor that opened onto the deck overlooking the harbor. I heard her footsteps behind me. When we were out on the deck, a chilly breeze off the water stunned my cheeks. She stood there, arms folded against the cold, hair lightly whipping around her face. The tableau was too familiar, reminded me of that photograph, her leaning against my shoulder on a windy day. But the warmth between us was dead. "Mike, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I never meant for it to get this far. I know I hurt you. I know. Do you?" I cut in, voice quiet. "Do you know the physical pain I've felt? The nights I woke up with cramps so bad I could barely move, because the betrayal twisted me up inside." I held her gaze. "You left me with nothing." She blinked rapidly. I didn't know how to stop it. It happened. She used the same line as before, and anger spiked through me. "It didn't just happen," I said, breathing hard. "You let it happen. You made choices, over and over. You lied to me. You snuck around with him. And you shut me out." My voice quivered, but I forced myself not to look away. "Step 1, Liz. Realize everything was a lie." She swallowed, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "Michael, you left. You changed your name. I couldn't even find you." "Yes," I said bitterly. "Step 2. Confront it. I tried that once, and you brushed me off. So I took matters into my own hands." I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a folded letter. "Step 3, I said, pressing it into her hand. "Kill whatever was left." She unfolded the letter. I watched her eyes dart across the words, recognition dawning. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You wrote this," she whispered. "You said you were destroyed, and that you'd never forgive me." Her tears didn't move me the way they once would have. "I meant every word," I replied flatly. "Read the rest when you're alone. Or throw it away, I don't care. It's done." She inhaled sharply. Is there any chance we can? No, I said, my voice cold as steel. The finality in that word was absolute. You ended that chance when you let him into our life. He's all yours, if you still want him. I turned to go. She grabbed my arm. Mike, she started, tears glinting in her eyes. I was weak. I made a huge mistake, but I never stopped loving. I wrenched my arm free, ignoring the jolt in my shoulder. Don't. My voice cracked, but I forced it steady again. You've no right to use that word. You talk about love, but love doesn't do what you did. Love doesn't watch a man crumble and walk away. You made your bed. Lie in it. Her face crumpled in anguish. She tried to speak, but her breath caught. I turned and walked off the deck, down the hallway, leaving her trembling in the cold. The string quartet was still playing. People were still laughing, clinking glasses. My pulse roared in my ears. I headed straight for the exit. On my way, I saw Trevor behind the bar. His eyes locked on me. He looked uneasy, shifting from foot to foot. He started to raise a hand in a nervous half-wave, maybe an attempt at peace. I stared at him without expression, then walked away. I didn't punch him. I didn't curse him out. I just left him there to deal with the fallout. A bartender behind a polished bar, surrounded by the shards of my life. Outside, the wind off the harbor stung, but I welcomed it. I paced toward my car, heart pounding, shoulders tense. Then I stopped for a moment, resting my hand on the hood. I forced a long, shaky exhale. My entire body felt tight, as if braced for a final blow that never came. But I realized I'd done what I came for. Step 3 was complete. Trust was dead for good. Driving away felt surreal. I had no illusions that I was magically healed. The ache was still there, flaring in my muscles, gnawing in my stomach. But something shifted, something new, calm. Dry, rigid calm. It settled over me like a second skin. I would never be the same man I was before she betrayed me. But this new version of me was stronger in a twisted way, hardened. Perhaps that's what she forged in her betrayal. A man who could face his own demons without flinching. The next few days passed quietly. I stayed in my small apartment, rereading the letter I'd handed her, half expecting some kind of message or call. But none came. Part of me wondered if she was lying in a hotel bed somewhere, reading my words over and over, or ripping them to shreds. Maybe she was turning to Trevor for comfort. In any case, I didn't care. I told myself I didn't. Each night, the old agony tried to coil around my shoulder, but I breathed through it. I forced myself to feel the pain, to accept it, because it was mine now. My wound, my reminder. One evening, I found the photograph again, the one I'd locked away for safekeeping. I'd gone to the storage unit to rummage for something else, and ended up pulling out that small metal box. My heart hammered as I opened it. There we were, on that old pier. She was pressed against me, eyes bright. A stab of memory shot through me. This time, I didn't cringe. I let the memory roll over me, the wave cresting and crashing. Then I put the photo back in the box and locked it again. I would keep it, not as a treasure, but as a testament to what was. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding. Slowly, tentatively, I found a better freelance contract. I visited my mother, who noticed how different I looked. She asked me if I'd gone through a rough patch. I told her I'd been tested, and I was still here. She seemed relieved just to hold my hand. I didn't burden her with every detail, but I could see in her eyes that she understood heartbreak. Sometimes I caught myself wincing at the memory. Liz's tearful face, that final deck confrontation, or the image of her with Trevor in the Redwood Suite. But each time, the echo of pain receded a bit faster. Maybe a day will come when I feel gratitude for the lesson. For now, I simply acknowledge that betrayal rearranges a man's world. If you survive it, you don't come out the same. But you do come out with a new sense of what you can endure. I wonder if she ever read the letter to the end. At the bottom, I wrote, "I hope you find happiness, but not at my expense. I won't be your casualty anymore. And I signed it. The man you once called husband. A petty flourish, perhaps, but it felt right. In that final step, destroying the last hope of reconciliation, I found a certain grim satisfaction. We men of a certain age, we cling to illusions of loyalty, of permanence. But illusions can cost you. Liz taught me that. She also taught me what it means to break, and then to rebuild from the pieces. Now, each day is a quiet battle, but also a quiet victory. My shoulder still aches, but I handle it. I still look over my shoulder sometimes, half expecting Liz or Trevor, or some ghost from my old life to appear. But the ghost can't haunt me for long. I made my peace with it, or at least I'm making it. A few nights ago, I found myself back at that same dingy bar, sipping a whiskey. This time, I didn't sit alone in the corner. I sat at the bar, talked to the bartender, and told him I'd had a rough year. He nodded. Life's rough for all of us, he said, but it sounds like yours has been a special kind of hell. I just laughed. A low, weary chuckle, because it was true. We parted with a handshake. I stepped out into the Seattle drizzle and let the cool rain wash over me. That's when I felt it. The faint stirring of something close to relief. Betrayal taught me a cruel lesson, but also gave me clarity. I can survive. My voice, once broken, still speaks. My body, once racked with pain, still stands. My heart, battered and bruised, keeps beating. That is enough. Sometimes, late at night, I remember the steps I took. Step 1. Realize everything you believed is a lie. Step 2. Confront the liar. Step 3. Kill the last hope of trust so you can walk away with whatever remains of yourself. Not the best formula for happiness, but it's the only formula I had left. And somehow, in that twisted arithmetic, I found an odd kind of strength. The final scene of my old life was dry, calm, and frighteningly quiet. I spoke my piece, handed her the letter, and left. That's how I closed the book on us. Now, if she ever tries to find me, she'll discover a man who no longer trembles at the mention of her name, who no longer flinches at the sight of a redwood sweet or a wave emoji. I can't pretend the pain's gone, but I've learned to wear it like armor. And that photograph, bent corner and all, it remains locked in that metal box. One day, maybe I'll destroy it, or maybe I'll keep it forever as a reminder that once upon a time, I had a life I believed in. For now, it stays hidden. My own private testament to the day I thought we were invincible. A testament to what I lost, and how I survived regardless.